This conference will now be recorded.
So in the last session, we have discussed about the integration where we are integrating the Salesforce with a third-party system, and we are invoking the third-party web service by using a URI with the help of HTTP class, HTTP request class, and HTTP response class. And we are able to retrieve the response, and then the response we are passing by using JSON parser classes. And we can represent the data inside our Salesforce page, or we can store the data inside our Salesforce objects also somewhere, depends upon the application requirement, so that we can use the data for the further processing. Or else we can pass the data to some other web service also, which will do some remaining process of that operation. So, but yesterday we did the integration between the two systems, that is Open Weather Map and then our Salesforce instance. Only two systems are. One is provider, second one is consumer. Okay, we are having the provider and the consumer. Only two systems are available. Now, for example, yesterday we had the integration of the Salesforce system, okay, with the Open Weather Map. So this is the process we did yesterday. Like we are having a provider and we are having the consumer. So Open Weather Map application is a provider, and we are having the consumer, that is Salesforce instance. Our Salesforce instance is a consumer. So we don't have any mediators between these two. So now provider is going to be exposing some web service, and then we are going to be accessing that web service directly from our Salesforce instance. We're invoking that web service from our Salesforce instance directly. We don't have any other mediators. Okay, we don't have any other mediators. So they have exposed the web service, which is a public web service which can be consumed by any application. It may be a Salesforce application or a SAP application, or it may be a mobile application also, a smartphone also, banking system, anything. Any application can access that open web service, and which we can able to consume, and we can pass some required input to the web service. We can get the response, and that response we can use inside our application. This is the process we do. But in some cases, whatever the third-party application is available, and the third-party server is available, third-party web service is available. So if it is working behind the firewall, if it is a very confidential system, it may be banking, finance, insurance, pharmaceutical. At that time, those are very, very confidential data. They're having very confidential data. When you go to some pharmaceutical organization, they're having some medicine formulas out there, which are very, very important, which are very, very confidential. If somebody is copying that formula, those people will prepare those medicines, they can able to release that product into the market also. So that formulas are very, very important, very, very confidential. So this kind of confidential data, how can we prevent from the other people? So in this case, in between that provider and the consumer, they are going to be introducing a mediator server that is called as authorization server. Okay, authorization server. Like for example, assume that I'm having a system, I'm having a banking system. I'm having a payment gateway, for example. This is the banking system that we have. Here's a banking system. Banking people are offering so many services. As part of this banking system, they're offering a payment gateway service. So here is a payment gateway service. There is a web service is available, which is a payment gateway. It's a payment gateway. Like whenever you are building any application like as e-commerce or any other application, through that application, if you want to transfer the money through online, then we have to use that payment gateways. Like when you go to that ATM, when you go to the railway reservation or any travel reservation APIs, at that time those are purely using payment gateways internally to make the payment for the ticket through online. So now we are having the payment gateway feature is available as part of this banking people. Now, so in this case, then how can we access this payment gateway? Assume that I'm having the Salesforce instance. I'm having a Salesforce instance. So this is my Salesforce server. This is my Salesforce system. Now here, I'm building an application. I'm building an e-commerce application. I'm building an e-commerce application. E-commerce application where the customer can able to buy the products through online with the help of my e-commerce application. So now in this case, the customer is going to be selecting some products through my e-commerce application. And once the products has been getting added to the cart, and then it is preparing the bill. Whenever the customer is making the payment for those items, then only we can able to deliver those items to the customer's place. So we need to provide a mechanism to that people, to that customer, that he can able to make the payment through online. So as part of my e-commerce application development, now I want to give the facility to my customers so that they can able to make the payment through online. So for that reason, I want that payment gateway feature. I want to include the payment gateway feature also as part of my e-commerce application. So in this case, how can we access this payment gateway feature so that the people can able to click on that make payment button automatically? It will redirect the user to the payment gateway. From there, the user can able to select any of the payment method which they want, and based on that payment method, they can able to make the payment through online. Once the payment has been done successfully, it will give the confirmation back to my e-commerce application. Payment has been done successfully. Then e-commerce application is going to be preparing that the order. That order is going to be sending to that the sales people, so that those people are going to be delivering the items to the customer's place. So in this case, in order to make the payment through online, I want this payment gateway facility as part of my application. So payment gateway is one of the feature which is exposing by so many banking people, so many third-party organizations. We can contact any of the third-party organizations or the banking people so that we can able to buy the license of the payment gateway. It's not free, it's a paid one. It's a paid one, so that we can able to access the payment gateway also by making the payment to those people, and we can able to make the payments through online. Now, in this case, this is a very, very confidential system. Payment gateway is a very, very confidential functionality, so that here the banking people are not exposing directly. For that one here, the banking people are going to be introducing an authorization server. They're introducing an authorization server. Because to protect this feature, because it is very, very confidential functionality, so other people may be misutilizing my data also. So for that reason, they are introducing an authorization server. Authorization server. You will be having an authorization server. Now this authorization server is going to be verifying your authentications. Once it is valid, then only it will be issuing one access token to you. Based on that access token, we can able to utilize that payment gateway. Like for example, let me explain a general scenario. Nowadays, everybody is using metro rail. Everybody is using metro trains to travel from one place to another place in the Hyderabad city. So metro trains are available at the second floor. Okay, we have to go to the second floor in order to catch the metro train to travel from Amirpet to some other location or from anywhere to anywhere in Hyderabad city. So in this case, how can we go to that metro train directly? Directly we can go to the second floor? No. At the first floor itself, whenever we are going to the first floor, so they will be having a security check. There is a security counter over here. There are some access systems are available where we need to show the token. Okay, we need to show the token. If the token is a valid one, then only it will open the door so that we can able to enter into that first floor. From there, we can go to the second floor. We can catch the train. So in this case, how can we get the access token? We have to make the payment. How? First of all, we have to go to that security. We have to go to that the ticket counter, and then we have to make the payment. Those people are giving a small token to you, like a small coin, a plastic coin, or they are giving a slip to you. With that one, we can show that access card, nothing but we can show that token in front of that access card system, which is going to be allowing you to enter into that second floor so that we can able to utilize the metro train so that we can start our travel. That means what? There is no direct communication. First of all, we have to meet that ticket counter people, get the ticket, nothing but get the token. Based on the token only, we can go to that train and we can able to travel from that place. So once your travel is over, then we have to drop the coin inside that machine itself. That means we can't use that same token again. Okay, we can't use that same token again. So now that token we have to drop inside the machine, then only it will open the door so that we can able to come outside from that metro station. So these are some security counters they have introduced here. Like the similar way, whenever if you want to go to the payment gateway, like as a train, then first of all, we need an authorization token. So where we can get that token from that authorization server here. Directly, we can't connect to that payment gateway. We can't access the payment gateway directly. First of all, we have to go to the authorization server. Okay, first of all, we have to go to that authorization server. We have to make a request to the authorization server first. From my Salesforce instance, we have to make a request to the authorization server. Now, whenever we are going to be making an authorization server request, then authorization server will be having a specific URL is available to you. This is called as authorization server URL. It will be having that separate URL. You will be having authorization server URL. You will be having an authorization server URL is available. So now we have to connect to that authorization server URL. We have to give that respective input parameters. Like here, this is like as a ticket counter. We are going to the ticket counter over here. So we are going to be giving some money. We are making some payment over here by giving the cash, also card, also whatever, anything. We have to give some input. We have to give some input parameters. We have to give some input parameters. So based on that input parameters, it will validate the data and then it will be issuing a token over here. It will be issuing a token. It will provide a token. Now, this token is called as access token. This token is called as access token. So this is the request. We are making a request to that particular authorization server. And this is the response. This is nothing but an access token. It is providing an access token. With that access token, we can able to communicate with the payment gateway over here. Now, with that access token, we can go to the payment gateway. Now from there, once the request has been getting made to the authorization server, that means this is the ticket counter. I have paid some amount. They have given an access token to me, nothing but small coin to me. So with that coin, I can able to catch the train by visiting that second floor. It maybe depends upon the platform number. I would like to go to that second floor, and then I'm going to be catching the train. We can able to utilize the resources. Now we can able to make a request to access that actual resource. Resource. We can able to make a request to the resource. Then whenever I'm going to making the request, in this case, I have to show that access token. Okay, access token. Access token. Along with that request, we need to send that access token. Based on the access token, it will verify. Again, the banking system is going to verify whether this access token is a valid one or not. So for that reason, here it is going to be communicating with this particular authorization server. It is going to be keep on communicating. These two systems are keep on communicating right now. Those two systems are keep on communicating. That means here, whatever the access token it will have sent to access that actual payment gateway resource, it will verify whether this access token is correct or not. Now, for that reason, it will communicate with the authorization server. It will verify whether this access token is still valid or not. Is it correct or not? If it is correct, then only it will be processing the request. It will be sending the response back to you. Then you will be getting the response back. Okay, then you will be getting that response back over here. We can able to access the actual resource. That facility will be available to you. So why? Because whenever we are going to be having some systems, those systems may be very, very confidential, which are running behind the firewalls. Because they're maintaining some confidential data. Some other people might be trying to hack your data also. To avoid this kind of misutilization, they are going to be introducing authorization servers. So first of all, we have to go to the authorization server and then get the confirmation that will show your identity, whether you are the right person or not. If you are a right person, then get that access token, then only we can able to utilize that resources here. That facility will be available to you. Now, in this case, whenever if you're having any confidential systems are available to which you would like to communicate, to which you would like to invoke, to which you would like to connect from your Salesforce instance, which are running behind the firewalls, at that time, we have to use a feature called as authentication and authorization. Authentication and authorization. Then what do you mean by this authentication? What do you mean by this authorization? Now, let me, for example, come to a general scenario. For example, assume that today I came to Bangalore. Today I came to Bangalore because of some personal work. Now, I would like to stay in Bangalore for next 2 days. To stay in Bangalore for the next 2 days, I need a small hotel room. So I went to a hotel. In that hotel, they will be having so many rooms are available. So I can able to take a room on rent for next 2 days. To stay in Bangalore here, okay? To stay in that hotel for next 2 days. Because that hotel is having so many resources are available. In that hotel, they will be having a gym is available, and they're having a cafeteria is also available. There are some hotel rooms are also available, and then they're having a swimming pool. Like that, so many resources are available in that hotel. Now tell me, can I directly go to that room and can I utilize the resources available inside the room which is available in the hotel? No, I can't use that directly. If you want to use any hotel room, first of all, we have to go to the reception. And then in the reception, they will be having some certain people are available. Receptionist may be available, or the front desk people or help desk people are available. We will assist to the customers. So first of all, we have to go to that reception area, and then we have to show your identity. Like I need to show my identity, like as my ID proofs, address proofs, from where I'm coming here, how long days, how long time I would like to stay in this particular room, what type of room that I want. Okay, so at that time, I have to explain my requirement over here. Then they will ask me to show my identity. I have to show my ID proof and address proof. Because they are not going to be providing the rooms for the unknown people. They need some proper confirmation. Okay, then they need some proper confirmation. So in this case, they will ask you, so please show me your ID proofs. Suppose here, whenever they ask me, who are you, then what is your name? Then I'm filling up the application form like I'm Ramesh Kumar, I'm from Hyderabad. Then what is the guarantee that I'm Ramesh Kumar? Maybe I'm writing some wrong name in that one. Maybe I'm writing some wrong contact number inside that. So for that one, I need to show my ID proof here, like some PAN card or Aadhaar card, voter ID, anything, whatever. We need to show, because for the confirmation for those people, I am the right person or not. What are the details that I have given, those details are correct or not, to verify. So in this case, the people are going to be verifying your details. Once they have verified, and then once the details are correct, then only they're giving a small access card to you. With that access card, we can go to the hotel room and we can utilize the resources. This is the process will be getting happening over here. Okay, the same scenario. Directly we can't utilize the resource. We have to go to a separate area first, like as an authorization server, and then show your identity, get that access token. Then only with that access token we can able to access that actual resources. Because these are very, very confidential, we are not disclosing to anybody else. So for that one, they are going to maintaining some authorization servers also. Now, like the similar way, when you go to that Salesforce instance also, whenever if you want to access any confidential systems like as banking or financials or pharmaceutical or any data at that time, there may be some authorization servers may be available over there. Not only one, multiple authorization servers may be there in some cases. Now, at that time, what we can do? How can we indicate that? How can we connect to that accesses? Then what exactly the authentication, what exactly the authorization? Now let me explain. Now anybody can explain that what exactly authentication, what exactly authorization. Which will come first, which will come next? What do you mean by authentication? What do you mean by authorization? What we will do in the authentication, what we will do in authorization? Authentication in the sense.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, authentication means verifying the user ID and password, sir, and authorization means verifying that what are the permission allowed for that user.
Okay, right. That means what? Authentication is nothing but we are going to just verify that user. Whatever the credentials that we have, okay, whatever the credentials that we have, so we are going to verify that user credentials. Like as for example, we can use some biometric systems also based on the thumbprint. We can able to identify whether this person is the right person or not. And then we can verify some user credentials also, usernames and the passwords. All these things we can able to validate here. This process is nothing but the authentication. Authorization is nothing but whether this particular user is having the rights to access this particular feature or not. Like for example, assume that come to a general scenario. Assume that I have a bank. In the bank premises, they're having so many counters are available. Like as they're having a branch manager counter is also there. They're having the cashier counter is available. Deposit counter is also there. Loans counter is also there. All these things are available. Along with that, there is a locker room is also available in the bank. Now, whenever I'm entering into the bank, there is a security person will be standing in front of the gate. So he will ask you, sir, what do you want? So you want to deposit or withdraw? Because he would like to guide you. Okay, he would like to guide you. So whether the bank network is properly working or not, they will give some information. So in this case here, sometimes they would like to show some identity. Like here, so I'm a customer of this bank. Okay, so that here I want to deposit some money. So please allow. He will be allowing you to enter into the bank premises. So because I'm a customer of that bank, so as a customer, I'm having the rights to enter into the bank premises. I can able to visit any of the counter. I can utilize the services offered by the bank people. So in this case, I would like to go to the deposit counter. I would like to deposit some money, and I will go to that loans counter. I will get some details about the loans also. I would like to visit that bank manager counter to get some more information regarding my account or whatever. So I can able to visit all these things. I can able to utilize all the resources. Because I'm a customer, I have the identity that I'm having an ATM card, I'm having the bank pass, which is available, which is going to be indicating to the security person that I'm a authorized person. Okay, I'm a person who is having the proper rights to utilize the bank resources. But in that bank, there is a small room is available, that is locker room. Can I enter into the locker room? No. Some people are entering into the locker room, so I have my curiosity. I want to see how the locker room is visible. what the locker room contains. I want to see. So whenever I'm trying to be entering into the locker room, the people are not allowing me. Why? Because I don't have that permission. I don't have that permission. Even though I'm a customer, I don't have the rights. Because you can utilize the deposit facility, withdrawal facility, loans facility, you can utilize the remaining resources available inside the bank, but for that locker room, you don't have the rights. You don't have the permissions to enter into the locker room because you don't have that permission. You don't have that locker facility. But other people are entering because those people are having the locker room, they're having the locker facility, they're utilizing that so that they're entering into the locker room. I don't have. Even though we both are customer, that person is having the permission and not having the permission to utilize that facility here. So in this case, what happened when coming to the authentication? Authentication is used to validating the user credentials, and authorization is used to verify whether this user is having the proper rights to enter into my access my particular feature or not. That we are going to be deciding that. Like for example, assume that I have an object. In my object, on my object, I'm having two users permissions. Okay, myself, I have created a record in that account object, and then I'm the owner of the record. And then along with me, one more person is available, like some Shiva. Shiva is also having the access on the record. How I have shared my record to Shiva also with read-only permission. So now in this case, what happened? Shiva is also one of the member of our organization. So whenever I'm creating my record, so the record is visible to me because I am the owner of the record. I'm having the full rights. I have shared the record to the Shiva here. Shiva can able to see my record, but he can't modify, he can't remove my record without my permission. Because he is having the access on the record. That means he's not the full control. He's not having full control, just he is having the access to see the record detail. That's it. He can't modify, he can't delete. That means upon performing the operation, it will verify whether this user is having the proper permissions to modify this record or not. It will verify. If he is having the modification permission, then only he can modify my record, or else he can't modify. That means what? So he is able to enter into my organization because he is a member. Okay, he's having the authentication, he's having his username and the password. He can see my record, but he can't modify my record because he's not having the permission on that record. So in this case, what happened? We are going to be verifying that permissions. Okay, whether this user is having the proper rights in order to modify my record or not. So for that reason, we are using authentications and the authorization processes. Authentication is especially allowed in order to verify the user credentials, such as usernames and the passwords, all these things. Authorization is going to be identifying whether this user is having the proper permission on this particular feature or not. To grant the permission on a specific feature inside your organization, inside your application, we are using that feature called as authorization feature. Now, so let's see, so what exactly is authentication and the authorization process over here. Now, let's see this feature. So now let's see the authentication. So when you go to the authentication over here, that means what? Whenever if you want to take a small room and rent in the hotel, so first of all, we have to show our identity first, whether we are the right person to take that room or not. Directly, we can't utilize that rooms and the resources available inside that particular the hotel. They will be having some proper permission. They will be having some processes available. They won't allow the other people to access your resources. For that one, first of all, we have to go to that reception. At the reception, they will be having some reception people are available who are keep on assisting the customers who wants to utilize the resources. So at that time, first of all, we have to go to the reception and we have to give the required information. Like we can say, I want a single room. Okay, for next 2 days, I want to stay, which is a AC room. So then they will be asking you your identity first. So please show me your identity here. So we have to provide our ID card, or it may be PAN card also, Aadhaar card also, anything. We have to show our identity because to know whether you are the right person or not. What are the details you have to fill up inside that application form, whether those details are correct or not, they would like to validate. For that one, we have to show our identity. Once identity has been done, so now here in this case here, Okay, once this identity has been done, then they are going to be issuing a small access card system to you. With that access card, we can go to that hotel, we can enter into the hotel, and then we can able to swipe that access card, and with that one, we can open that room, and then we can utilize the room resources, whatever we have. Now here in this case, whenever we are going to be authenticating, this authentication process is called as identity management. This authorization process is also called as access management. Identity management, access management. Identity management is what? Identifying that user, nothing but verifying that user credential, verifying that users whether he is a proper, whether he is the right person to access my resources or not. For that reason, we are using this identity management, which is used to validate the user's credentials based on the details, whatever you have entered, whether you are the right person or not. And then only they will allow you to enter into the organization. They can able to utilize the resources by using the access card systems, so which is called as authorization process. Okay, now, so let's see what exactly the authentication, what exactly the authorization. Now let's go to that authentication process first. Authentication process. Authentication process is also called as identity management. Now, so authentication is a process of identifying a user based on a set of verifiable credentials. Based on some set of verifiable credentials means based on some proofs. Based on some proofs, we can able to identify whether this user is the right person or not. Like based on the usernames and the passwords. Based on the username and the password, we can able to validate that particular user. We can verify whether this user is having the proper rights to enter into my organization or not. Now, for that one, we are using this authentication process. Like generally, when you go to your normal applications also, it may be any application, Gmail also, whatever, without showing your credentials, we can't enter into that application. We have to show our identity, like as your username and the password. Until or unless you are not entering the proper username and the password, it won't allow you to enter into the application. So that when you go to the client server applications also always, so now the server will validate the identity of the client by verifying by itself or by forwarding the request to a trusted third-party provider. That means what? When coming to the client server architecture, whenever the client wants to access any of the server resources, then the client is initiating the request to the server. Server is going to be validating the request. It will verify whether this user is a valid user or not. It will be verifying by its own, or it may be sending that request to that a third-party web service, a third-party server, which is going to be doing that verification process on behalf of the actual server. Okay. On behalf of the actual server, they are going to verify that information also. Now, for example, let me explain that scenario. Assume that I got a job in some TCS. Today is my onboarding date. So on the joining formalities, I have submitted all my documents, like as my educational documents, past experience documents, ID proofs, address proofs, everything. What these people will do basically, they are going to verify this document is correct or not. Then will these HR people are going to verifying all this information by visiting your address, by visiting your school, colleges, everything? No. For that one, they are going to be appointing some consultancy people. They are appointing some third-party people. There are some third-party investigation bureaus are also available, like as some First Advantage and then Matrix. Okay, like that we are having some third-party. Okay, the third-party consultancy people are available who are going to verifying these kind of background checks. Okay, we are having some third-party organizations are available who will do that background verification process. Okay, who are going to do this kind of background verification process over there, okay, on behalf of that HR people, on behalf of the TCS company. Now these are third-party people are going to be verifying this background verification process. So whatever the documents have submitted to that, the HR people, one copy of the document they're submitting to that, to the background verification people, like as BGC team, those people are going to the respective places physically, because they will go to your home, they will go to your address also, they will verify, they will go to your school also, they will go to your colleges also, university also, your previous companies also, they will verify the bank statements, everything they will cross check that. Finally, they're submitting a report to that particular HR person. So now these details are correct. If any of the document is a false document, they're indicating that background verification is negative. So that means here this person is not submitting the correct document. These are the fake documents. They're giving the investigation report to those people as well. Now, so now here in this case, like the similar way, whenever a client is sending a request to the server can validate the details by its own, or the server may be redirecting the details to a third-party system also in order to do the verification on behalf of the server. Why? Because suppose for example here in this case, let me explain. This is a scenario. This is the scenario. In this case, what happened? Whenever I'm going to be making a request to this particular banking system to access the payment gateway, so verification process and the like as authentication, authorization, everything will be doing with the banking system. It will take more time because so many systems are connecting to the banking system, so many applications, so many people are accessing this banking system at the same time. So it will be putting some more load on the banking system. For that one here, to reduce that load, they're using a load balancing feature. They're using the load balancing feature. As part of this load balancing, they are going to be introducing that authorization server. So whenever they are going to be accessing any resource, first of all, they're redirecting the user to that authorization server first. First, go to that authorization server, show your identity, and please get the confirmation. Okay, once you are authenticated person, then only we can able to make a request to the actual resource to access that the functionalities available inside the banking system. For that one, in order to reduce the load on that particular banking system, they're introducing this kind of load balancing concept by introducing that authorization server. Some of the verification will be done by the authorization server, then the actual resource can be accessible from the banking system so that we can reduce that load as well. That facility will be available. For that one, they have indicated clearly here. So now verification can be done by the server itself or by forwarding the request to a trusted third-party provider also, who is going to be verifying that on behalf of that server, the third-party system, or it may be a authorization server is going to be verifying this credentials here, which has been provided by that user. Now, so now here in this case here, as part of this authentication process, we are going to be verifying this. Now, in this case, it is indicating authentication determines if you are really who you say you are. That means what? Whenever we are going to be entering into that, okay, the reception inside that hotel. So now immediately we can say, so I'm so and so person, okay, from so and so location. Okay, whatever is said that, okay, whether really you are that same details are not, because to show your identity, so they will ask you to show your identity directly. They can't trust you. Okay, they will ask you to show your identity. So in that particular card details, whatever the details they have mentioned, like as whatever the PAN card or other card or whatever the identity proof that you showed, in that details, whatever the details are mentioned in that particular the proofs, what are the details that are specified right now, both are correct or not, they will verify. That's what here. So now here authentication determines if you're really who you say you are. Okay, whatever the details you said that, okay, whether really you are those details are belongs to you or not, they will verify with the help of authentication process. Now, so once authentication process has been done, then they are going to be giving the permission to you to utilize the resources. For that one, they are introducing that, okay, the authorization process. They're introducing the authorization process here. So what do you mean by this authorization process? Authorization process is also called as access management, whether you are having the proper rights to access that particular feature or not. Now in this case, authorization determines if the user has the permission to access resources of the server post authentication. That means once authentication has been done, then whether this user is having the proper rights to access this particular resource or not. To indicate that, we are going to be using the authorization server. Now, so now in this case, during the authorization, the system verifies access of an authenticated user can grant or deny the access. Now, so that means what? Based on this authorization server, they based on this authorization process, nothing but based on the permissions, it will decide whether this particular user can able to grant the access on that particular feature or not, whether this user can able to access the feature or not. Now, so in this case, it requires the authorization. Let me show you practically here. For example, I'm having my Salesforce system. This is my Salesforce system. This is my Salesforce organization that we have right now. This is my Salesforce organization. Now, which is a secure network. Now, we have an application called as Workbench. Okay. Workbench. Workbench.developer first. I want to connect to this particular Salesforce instance. So in this case, I'm indicating login with Salesforce. Once you click on this login with Salesforce, initially it is going to be making a request. Okay, it is making a request to this particular, the Salesforce server that is requesting that authorization. It is requesting for the authorization, nothing but allow access. Okay, allow access. Now Workbench is accessing to access your basic information. Okay, the provide access to data via the web access and the manage your data. That means now this Workbench is a third-party application, so which wants to access your data. So do you want me to allow or not? That means here you want to grant the permission to access your data or not. If you want, we can allow. If you don't want, we can deny that. Based on that, they can able to access the resources here. Here also, this is nothing but the authorization. This is nothing but the authorization. Now, it will verify whether you are having access to a particular resource or not. Based on that, we can able to decide whether this particular, the client can able to access our data or not. That will be deciding based on the authorization. Whenever if you are going to be click on allow, then only it is going to be allowing you to access the data from the Salesforce instance, or else it won't allow to access that. Like the similar way, for example, I'm installing the Paytm application in my mobile. So now I took a new mobile, because I lost my old mobile here. So today I took the new smartphone. Now I'm installing that Paytm application inside my new mobile device. So upon installing that Paytm mobile application from the Play Store or from the App Store, so upon installing that, it is asking for some permissions, right? Like Paytm application requires the permissions on your mobile contacts, on your mobile data, on your gallery also, on your some local storage. It is expecting some permissions. If you are going to be granting the permissions like as allow, like as if you are granting the permission, then only it will be getting the permissions. Based on that, it can able to install that application. From there, we can able to store the data inside that. If you are not granting the permission, then all the features will not be able to visible to you. Okay, so for that reason, they are going to be sending the request to you to access that particular resource. Now, like the similar way here also, we can able to have that authorization process. So now authorization cannot occur without authentication. Without authentication, authorization cannot occur. That means first of all authentication, then only authorization. This is the process. This is the sequence of process. First of all, it will verify whether this user is a correct user or not. Then only it will allow the user to enter into the application. But whenever the user is accessing the application feature, it will verify whether this user is having access on this particular feature or not. So to verify the permission on each and every feature, we are using authorization process over here. Then how can we do these kind of authorization processes? Whenever if any of that third-party system, it may be any of the third-party system, it may be a Workbench also, it may be any of the gaming application also. Whenever if it wants to access your Salesforce instance, then at that time, first of all, we have to grant the permission. Whenever we are granting the permission, that means whenever we are granting the authorization, then only they can able to access your data, or else they can't access your data. Then how can we grant these kind of authorizations? How can we grant these kind of permissions? For that one, we are going to be using a protocol called as OAuth protocol. Okay, we are using that protocol called as OAuth protocol. This is called as Open Authentication Protocol. Okay, we are using that Open Authentication Protocol. Then what exactly is Open Authentication Protocol over here? So now in Open Authentication Protocol allows you for the secured authorizations in a simple and standard methods from your web or from a mobile or from a desktop application. For example, if you're having a resource, okay, if you're having a banking system which is having some payment gateway, that payment gateway can be accessible from any system also. From the mobile also we can access, through your browser also we can access. That means from a web application also, from a desktop application also we can able to access. That facility is available. Whenever we are going to be granting the permission on a particular feature to these people, then we are going to be using that the simplest mechanism that is called as OAuth 2.0, so which is providing the set of standards through which we can be able to grant the permissions to those people to access your resource. It may be from any kind of device also. It may be from a web also. It may be from desktop application. It may be from a mobile application also, anything. So basically, it allows a user's information to be used by a third-party service without exposing the user's password. That means what? Without showing your username and the password, it is going to be giving the simplest mechanism to you. Thus, it is going to be providing one access token. Through that access token, only the people can able to access the actual resources. They no need to show the username and the password everywhere. So initially here they are going to be indicating to that, redirecting to that third-party service that is called as authorization server. There we need to show our identity, that means our username and the password, and based on that we can able to collect the access token, and with the help of that access token we can able to access the actual resource. So now OAuth is purely implemented based on the SSL protocol. That means secured socket layer protocol. So which is very secure, which is having the encryption and the decryption mechanism inbuilt. Secured socket layer, SSL means secured socket layer protocol, which is having the encryption and the decryption mechanism in place here, inbuilt is available. So that's what here, whenever we are using the HTTPS protocol, okay, HTTPS, upon accessing any application we are using, for login.salesforce.com also, HTTPS, login.salesforce.com. HTTPS means what? HTTP plus SSL protocol. HTTP protocol simply transmitting the data in the form of the hypertext, nothing but simply in the normal text format. If I'm sending the data in the form of text format, that will not be providing much security. To provide the security for your data, we need the encryption and the decryption mechanism, which can be implemented with the help of SSL. So that they are going to be using the combination of HTTP protocol plus SSL protocol, which is called as HTTPS. HTTPS is nothing but combination of HTTP plus SSL protocol, which is having encryption and the decryption mechanism. Now, so now here in this case, how can we use this OAuth authentication over here? When you go to the OAuth authentication, it is going to providing the roles like this. Okay, these are the roles that already we have discussed that process here. Okay, already we have discussed this process right now. That means what you will be having the actual resource server. Here the actual resource server is available. Here we are having the resource, nothing but a web service. And here we are having that authorization server is available. First of all, we have to make a request to the authorization server, get the response. That means we have to get that access token, and then we have to make a request to the actual resource server to get the actual resource. This is the process. The same steps I have indicated here also. Now, here also they are indicating the same steps over there. Now, so they will be having that actual resources. So we are having the resource server, here the actual resource server that we have, so which will be having the actual data, it may be the functionality, business logic, whatever, anything. This is the authorization server. So first of all, the user is going to be utilizing the system, the client system. Through this client system, he is making a request to that authorization server as a step 3. So now we are going to making a request to the authorization server to grant access. Now, authorization server is going to validating your credentials. Based on that, it is going to be issuing an access token to you over here. As a step 4, once the access token has been getting received, then with the help of access token, we can make a request to the actual resource server to access that actual resource over here. So now they are indicating that access data with the token on behalf of the owner. So if you are having that access token, then with the help of that access token, we can able to access that actual resource. So that facility will be available to you. Now, in this case, when you go to that secured systems, you will be having authorization server is available, resource server is available. Resource server will be having the actual resources, actual web services, or it may be data, it may be business logic, it may be functionality, which will be available inside the resource server. So whenever if you want to access that actual resources, then we need to get that proper rights with the help of contacting that authorization server also. Now, so in this case, when you go to that OAuth 2.0, we are having the two servers will be getting introduced, resource server and the authorization server. In that authorization server, you will be having the authentication mechanism is available, and after that, they are going to be issuing some access token. Based on the access token, we can able to access the actual resources. This is the process will happen as part of OAuth authentication mechanism. Now, so when you go to that OAuth authentication, will it be supporting with the Salesforce or not? Yes. Salesforce is purely supporting the OAuth authentication mechanism since the winter 11 release. That means almost since 9 years, Salesforce is supporting this, the OAuth authentication mechanism. So Salesforce provides extensive support for OAuth 2.0 version. OAuth 2.0 will be purely supporting with the Salesforce since the winter 11 release over here. So, but as part of OAuth 2.0, we are having the various flows are available. Various flows are available. Various mechanisms are available. So those are called as the flows. Each and every flow is having a different authorization mechanism is available. Each and every flow will be having different authorization mechanism is available to you. So now as part of this, okay, OAuth authentication, Salesforce is supporting the 8 types of flows. Salesforce is supporting 8 types of flows, okay, from the OAuth. OAuth is keep on introducing so many new flows also in order to authorize that particular request. So for that reason here, as part of those OAuth flows, Salesforce is supporting 8 types of flows over there. And then which can be easy to accessible, okay, which can be easy to accessible by using the Salesforce APIs. So then what are the various of flows are supporting by the OAuth 2.0? Now let me explain that. When you go to the OAuth 2.0 flows, we are having the multiple flows are available, like as username password flow, a web server authentication flow. This is also called as the code-based authentication. It is also called as code-based authentication flow. And then user agent flow is available. Okay, SAML bearer for session flow, and we are having the JWT bearer session flow. Like these are the various of flows are available inside that. So then what are the various of flows are supporting by the OAuth authentication? Okay, let's go to that. Okay, Salesforce documentation. Let me go to the Salesforce documentation. When you go to the Salesforce documentation, they're clearly describing each and every flow and then how to use everything. Whenever if you are going to working on that, okay, whenever if you are going to working on that, any of that flow, okay, we have to go to the Salesforce documentation first. Go to the Salesforce documentation first. See, they're indicating authorization apps with OAuth. So now OAuth authorization flows, like as OAuth 2.0 web server flow, user agent flow, JWT bearer flow, and then OAuth 2.0 device flow for IoT integration. And then along with that, they're indicating the asset token flow. And then they're indicating the refresh token flow. And then username password flow. SAML bearer assertion flow. Like that, just so many Salesforce is supporting so many flows over here. OpenID connect dynamic client registration flow. Generating initial access token. OpenID connected token. Like that, multiple flows will be getting supporting by the Salesforce over here. So these are the various flows will be supporting by Salesforce. From that one, the most important one is the now OAuth 2.0 username password flow is very, very important. Okay. So now they're indicating that okay 2.0 okay username password flow. Once you click on this, they're going to be indicating clearly. So how can we connect to that OAuth 2.0 by using that username and the password flow here? They're indicating that. Now, so in this case, how can we get this information? So what exactly the OAuth 2.0, okay, the username and the password flow. So what exactly the indication, why it is going to be connecting, okay, how we are going to processing that flow, we'll see practically in this case. Now, let me explain that process over here. Salesforce OAuth 2.0 username password. Let me explain this flow. So they're clearly indicating that this is the flow. So they're clearly indicating this is the flow we have to follow over here. Now, first of all, okay, we have to access for request for access token. So they're indicating clearly here are the major steps involved in the username and the password flow. As a step one, we need to have a connected app over here. Okay, we need to have a connected app. Request an access token by sending the user's login credentials to that Salesforce token endpoint. After verifying the request, Salesforce grants an access token to the connected app. The connected app can use this access token to access the protected data on the users on behalf of that. So whenever we are going to be connecting to that particular, the actual resource server, okay, as part of this OAuth, the username and the password flow, okay, we have to follow some set of steps. Okay, now let me explain those set of steps. Okay, first, whenever we are going to be indicating, okay, whenever we are going to be authorizing that respective servers by using that the OAuth authentication, we need a special application that is called as connected app. Okay, we need a special application called as connected app. Through this connected app, we can able to connect to the actual resource servers, okay, through with the help of OAuth authentication. Through OAuth authentication, we can able to connect to that actual resource servers with the help of these connected apps. Now let me explain that connected app. Connected app. So what exactly the connected app? Let's see. Now, it is a special kind of Salesforce application which allows us to access Salesforce APIs using OAuth 2.0. So by using that Salesforce APIs, nothing but by using the REST APIs, if you want to access any of that Salesforce resources through OAuth authentication, then we need to have a connected app which is going to be providing some set of keys through which we can able to authorize our request. So for that reason here, connected app is going to be doing the following things. Connected app will do the authentication mechanism over here with the third-party service, and then it is providing the single sign-on feature. It acquires the access tokens also, nothing but through connected app we can able to get the access tokens, and then we can provide the redirect URL also. This is also called as callback URL. And after configuring this connected app, it is going to be providing the two keys to you generally. One is that is called as client ID, that is also called as consumer key. Second one is client secret, that is also called as consumer secret. Now, whenever I'm going to be using this connected app, connected app is used to generate the below three keys. The first one is it will be generating the client ID. It is also called as consumer key. Second one is the client secret. It is also called as consumer secret. And the third one, callback URI, callback URL. Okay, callback URL. And it is also called as redirect URL. Okay, redirect URL. So these are the three keys will be getting generated by this connected app. With the help of this consumer key and the consumer secret and the callback URL, we can able to authorize our request by the authorization server, and from there we can able to get the access token, and then we can able to make a request to the actual resource. So that whenever if you want to use the OAuth authentication, first of all we have to configure the connected app first. First of all we have to configure the connected app. Then how can we get that connected app, and then where we can create this connected app? So who will generate all these things? Now let me explain practically over here. So we have to create a connected app first, and from there it will be generating the client ID, client secret, consumer key, and then we are going to be using the callback URL. Then, so now here in this case, how can we create this, the client ID and the client secret with the help of by creating a connected app? We'll see practically over here. Now, so let me explain the process over here. So what exactly the process we are going to follow whenever we are going to be using this, the client ID and the client secret and the consumer key, and then we'll see that process over here. Let me explain the process first. So then how can we implement the username and the password flow? Now let me explain that first. Let me explain the step-by-step approach first. Then we'll see the implementation part also. How can we do that? As part of OAuth 2.0 username and the password flow, okay, we should have the connected app first, and then we'll see where exactly the connected app has to be get created. Let me explain one by one. Assume that I have two organizations. Okay, I have two organizations. This is one organization. I'm having this organization. So this is my Salesforce organization. And then I'm having one more organization over here. This is the consumer. Assume that I'm having the provider and the consumer. So this is the provider organization. This is the provider at the server. This is the provider at the server. This is also called as the actual resource server. This is also called as actual resource server. This is also called as actual resource server. Now, for example, in this particular organization, for example, this is a provider and this is a consumer. That means this is a client. This is a client. Now, when coming to this resource server, it is having a resource. For example, there is a web services available inside this. Okay, there is a resources available. there is a resource is available inside this. There is a resource. That is nothing but a web service. It is having a web service inside this. There is a web service. There is a web service. Now this particular web service name is like some case manager service. Okay, this is nothing but some case manager service. Resource name is case manager service. Now tell me, how can we access this resource right now? In order to access this particular web service, we have to use some URL, right? Yes. How can we access this resource? In order to access this resource, we need some URL. Okay, we need to use some URL. So what is that URL? For example, I'm having this URL like this: https some ap16.salesforce.com/services/apex-rest/case manager service. Case manager service. This is the actual resource. So whenever if you want to access this particular resource, this is the URL we have to use. We are having the https ap16.salesforce.com/services/apex-rest/case manager. This is the resource that I'm having right now. I would like to access from the consumer. So now this is the actual resource that I'm having. Now this resource can be accessible by the client over here. It is nothing but the provider consumer. The consumers can able to access it. For example, this is my Salesforce instance. This is also a Salesforce instance. Assume that. This is also a Salesforce. This is a Salesforce organization. And this is also one of the Salesforce organization. This is also another Salesforce organization that I have. So two Salesforce organizations are available. Client is also Salesforce, and then server is also Salesforce. But both are two different organizations, not same. Both are two different organizations. That is Salesforce separate account. This is Salesforce separate account. Okay. Now, so in this case here, for example, this organization belongs to Shiva. Okay, this belongs to Shiva's account, and this is belongs to mine account. It's mine. It's my account. Now, so now Shiva has prepared a web service, okay, which is with the name Case Manager Service, which is having so much business logic. Now I want to access that Shiva's resource. Okay, I want to access Shiva's resource. I want to invoke his web service. How can we access his web service? For that one, Shiva has prepared very confidential data inside this web service. It's a very confidential. For that one, he has provided the proper security with the help of introducing an authorization server. He has provided the security for his web service, okay, with the help of an authorization server. There is an authorization server is available because he has protected the resource. Okay, he has protected the resource from, okay, by introducing that authorization server. Authorization server. So there is an authorization server is available. So now, first of all, we have to make it authorized by this particular authorization server. Then only I can able to access his resource. Now, this resource server is going to be keep on in touch with that authorization server. Now, the resource server is keep on in touch with that authorization server. Both will be keep on communicating over here. So now, whenever if you want to provide any authorization server, Salesforce is providing one authorization server directly over here. Because Salesforce is providing one authorization server in order to issue the access token. Okay, in order to issue the access token, Salesforce is providing one authorization server here. I will tell you what is the URL of that authorization server here. I will tell you that step-by-step access as well. Now, so now as a client, I want to access nothing but as a person, I want to access Shiva's resource. But Shiva has prepared a web service which is very, very confidential data is available inside that, which is completely restricted. So but I want to access his resource. So in this case, so what I need to do, whenever I'm going to be connecting to the Shiva's resource directly, I can't connect. There is an authorization mechanism is available. How can we contact this authorization server? For this one, I have to provide some resources. What resources? Those input I need to collect from Shiva first. For those input, I need to collect from Shiva first. In this case, suppose if Shiva wants to expose his web service to the third-party people like me, okay, if anybody, myself and any other people wants to access this particular resource, at that time we need to pass some input. So what is that input? That input has to be given by the Shiva itself. Okay, the input has to be provided by Shiva. Like for example, come to a general scenario. Assume that I have purchased a laptop. Okay, I have purchased a laptop. Today, I'm facing some problem with the laptop, so I'm going to be raising a complaint to that customer care. What the customer care people will do, immediately they will ask you to specify your model number. What is your product code? We have to specify the product code, because upon purchasing that laptop, okay, back of your nothing but the bottom of your laptop, you will be having a small, okay, a barcode, and below that you will be having a service tag is available. We have to provide that service tag. That means this is the product which I have purchased. This is the ID of my product. What is the model number here? We need to indicate. That means we have to provide some details. When I have purchased that product here. So what is that configuration? I need to provide model number, all these things we need to specify. Based on that, they are going to be raising the complaint. So based on that, they are going to be raising the complaint over here. For that one, so those details were collecting from where? From the product itself over here. Now, who is giving the product code and all these things? That manufacturer. Like the similar way, Shiva has prepared one web service. Whenever as a client, if I want to connect to the Shiva's resource, if I want to invoke that Shiva's web service, then I need some input over here. For that one, Shiva has to prepare a connected app. Okay? Shiva has to prepare a connected app. In his server, nothing but in his account, okay, in that Salesforce, in his Salesforce account, Shiva has to prepare a connected app. He has to prepare one connected app. That has to be done by the Shiva only, not by ourselves. Shiva has to prepare a connected app. Okay. Shiva has to prepare a connected app. Now, so we need to prepare a connected app over here. So now we are going to preparing a connected app. Nothing but who is preparing the connected app? Shiva is going to preparing the connected app. Okay. So now whenever he is going to preparing the connected app is going to be providing the two resources over here. It is providing two resources. Upon creating the connected app, it provides the two resources. The first one is it is providing the client ID. It is providing the client ID, that is also called as consumer key. Second one is the client secret. It is also called as consumer secret. Okay, consumer secret. It is going to generating that, okay, the client ID client secret. So Shiva has to create a connected app in his organization. That means in his server, Shiva has to create a connected app. And along with that, Shiva has to provide one user's credentials also to us. Okay, Shiva has to provide one user's credentials also. He has to provide one user's credentials. He has to create one user. He has to provide the username and the password to us. He has to create a user login. User login. So in his things, so nothing but in his resource server, Shiva has to prepare a connected app, and after that, he has to provide the two things to us. The first one is client ID and the client secret. Second one is the username and then password. Okay, password. No. So now he has to provide the username and the password. These are all the setup that Shiva has to do. So now first of all, Shiva has to create a connected app, and then whenever he is creating a connected app, it is generating a client ID and the client secret, that is also called as consumer secret. And then he has to provide his username and the password. Nothing but he can pass that administrator account also, no problem, or any other user account also, no problem. Yeah. Okay, he can create a separate user by giving some restricted permission, okay, to access only this particular web service. Now, so now in this case, he is going to be creating one user account. For the user account, whatever the username and the password is available, now this information he has to create. So once he's done with that setup, okay, once he's done with the setup, Shiva has to provide all these four information to the client. Okay, he has to provide the client ID, client secret, username, and the password. All these four information he has to provide to me. Then only I can able to connect to the Shiva resource. Okay, so for that one we need that input from the Shiva. So what are the inputs required from the Shiva? Now let me explain here. We need the inputs. Input from the provider and the server. We need these inputs here. Okay, inputs from server. Nothing but from the Shiva, I need these four resources. What we need, I need that client ID. Client ID. Second one, client secret. Third one, username. Fourth one, password. These are the four input that I need from the Shiva, then only I can able to access that his resource. So these are the inputs that we required from Shiva right now. Based on this input only, we can able to connect to the Shiva's resource. Now, so in this case, what needs to be done? So now Shiva has set up his server by preparing a confidential web service, which can be accessible by using the resource name over here. This is the endpoint URL, which I need to connect actually. But whenever we are going to be connecting this one, this is running behind a secured system. So for that one, Shiva has set up the authorization server, which is going to be keep on protecting his service from the unauthorized people. So now today, as a client, I have some agreement with that Shiva. So now we are like as one of the consumers. We are utilizing Shiva's resource. So at that time, we had some agreement with the Shiva also. So now we are from today onwards, we are collaborating with you. So we would like to access your resources. So Shiva has done with the agreement. So we are done with the signed on that agreement. Now he has given that information. That means to access that Shiva's resource, we need some inputs like as a client ID, a client secret, username, and the password. So Shiva has configured all these 4 and he has shared to us. Now, with these details, we need to connect to the Shiva's resource. How can we access that resource? In order to access the resource, first of all, we have to connect to the authorization server. Okay, we have to make a request to the authorization server first. How can we make another request to the authorization server? What is that authorization server's URL? For that, Salesforce is clearly providing the authorization server for the Salesforce. Okay, for Salesforce, they're providing the authorization server's URL is available. Let's go to that. In order to get an access token, we have to use a URL. Salesforce is providing the authorization server's URL is available to you. Now, So let me give that authorization to server URL to get the access token. Now, to get the access token, we need to go with the authorization server. So what is that authorization server URL? Now let's see. Salesforce will be completely documenting everything. Just we have to use that URLs. In order to get that authorization server URL, we have to use that Salesforce is providing one URL for the authorization server. Now, let me get it. OAuth2.o username password authorization server URL. Let me get it done. We'll be having that OAuth endpoints also will be available to you. See, in order to get that access token, there is a URL here. Now the Salesforce instance, these are the various endpoints has been given by Salesforce. In order to get the access token, we are using this URL. This is the authorization server URL here. OAuth endpoints here, we can able to see all this information. This is for the access token. This is for the reverse token. This is for that the code-based authentication. We are using this authorized. Okay. These are the various endpoints will be giving by the Salesforce to you by default. This is for the OpenID Connect also. Now, so now here in this case, for the username and the password authentication, we are going to be using this access token. Now it is giving the description clearly. The Salesforce instance over the 2.0 token endpoint. Connected app sends over the token request to this endpoint here. So that in order to make a request, in order to get that access token, we have to use this authorization server's URL. This is the URL here. Let me copy this URL, paste inside our diagram. This is the authorization server's URL. So this is the authorization server's URL, which we need to connect. To this authorization server's URL, we have to send the request. So how can we send the request to this authorization server? It requires some parameters over here. Okay, it requires some parameters. What are all the parameters are required? Salesforce is clearly documenting inside that. Everything will be available inside the document only. We have to follow the document always. Whenever we are going to be accessing that, to request for an access token, they're clearly indicating the steps. Request an access token. Now, in this case, to request an access token, connected app sends a user's username and the password as an out of band post, nothing but it is the post request, okay, to the Salesforce token endpoint. For the token endpoint here, this is nothing but such as following post, nothing but it is a post request. You know, get request, post request, and then delete, and then patch, and then all these things you are aware of. So, but this is the post request. How do we need to pass this information? We have to pass these are the information. What information we need to pass here? We need to pass a grant type equals to password, and the client ID we need to pass, and the client secret we need to pass, and then username we need to pass, and the password we need to pass. These are the parameters we need to pass. This is the request body which we are passing in the form of post. So in this case, what happened? So now whatever the information, nothing but we need to pass this information. Okay, we need to pass the information to that particular third-party request. So now here in this case, what need to be specified here? We need to pass a request to that authorization server. Now, so we are going to be requesting to the authorization server. We are going to be sending a request to that authorization server. I'm making a request. Whenever I'm going to be making a request to the authorization server, then what are all the information that we need to supply? If you know the flow, implementation is very, very simple, nothing else. Whenever we are going to be sending the request to that authorization server, request. Whenever I'm going to be making a request to the authorization server, in this request, what we need to specify, we have to pass some parameters. What are those parameters here? We need to specify the granted type. Along with that, the client ID. Client ID. Client is secret. Username and the password. These are the information I need to pass as a request to that the authorization server. To this authorization server, we need to pass all this information as a request here. We have to pass this information. We have to pass this information to this authorization server as a request. So these are the information we need to pass to the authorization server as a request. Whenever we are going to be passing all this information as a request, whenever we are passing all this information as a request to the authorization server. Whenever we are going to passing all this information as a request to the authorization server. Authorization server is going to be giving a response to you. It is providing a response back to you. It is providing the response back. It is providing the response back. So you will be getting the response. You will be getting that response. In that response, you will be having the access token also. In this response, you will be getting that access token also. You will be having the access token. In this response, you will be getting the access token. Access token will be available to you as a response. You will be getting that access token as a response. This is the indication here. So we need to make a request. Nothing but here as an end user or as a consumer, I need to make a request to the authorization server. This is the authorization server URL. So we have to make a request. In that request, we have to specify the granted type, client ID, client is secret, username, and the password. Now this will be a post request. Okay, this will be a post request where we need to include all these parameters. How to include this one? They're clearly indicating this. This is the steps over here. Granted type equals to password and client ID equals to so and so client ID, and then client is secret and the username and the password. All this information we have to include and then we have to send. Whenever we are going to making a request, we will be getting some response here. Salesforce grants an access token like this. This will be the response we will be receiving here. In this response, you will be having the access token. Let's see. This is the access token parameter.
Hello, sir.
It is providing the access token to you.
Hello.
Yeah.
Sir, how long the access tokens will be? It will be expired or it will be refreshed the tokens?
Now, at that time, we need to indicate how long time it has to be get available. That will be indicated by Shiva only. So Shiva is going to be indicating upon creating that access token, he will be indicating that here. How long time it will be available. In that profile, he will specify that. The session settings he is going to be specifying over there. It may be 8 hours or 4 hours, or it may be 1 day, it may be lifelong. It will be indicating that immediate expiration. He will be indicating that whole information over there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now. So now in this case here. So now he is going to be generating that access token. That means we are getting the access token. Once the access token is available, then from there we are going to be invoking that actual resource. Okay. Okay. From there, we are going to be invoking the actual resource over here. So now, from there, we need to invoke the actual resource by including the endpoint URL. Now, so whenever we are making a request, to whom we need to make the request? Authorization server. What is the endpoint over here? This is the endpoint URL. Okay, OAuth 2/token. For this one, we have to make a request. That method type will be set method will be that post request, and these are the parameters we need to supply. Then you will be getting the response in the form of JSON. In that one, you will be having that access token is available. Collect that access token, and from there, now make a request to that actual resource. Now we need to make that actual resource. Now make a request to that actual resource. Now we are going to be accessing that actual resource by making a request. Make a request to that actual resource. Here we have to specify the request. We need to make a request to that actual resource. But whenever we are going to be requesting to the actual resource, we have to specify the access token also. Okay, we have to include that access token also. Along with access token. So where we can specify this access token, in this case that already told you in the last session, whenever if you are passing any authentication codes, we are specifying the access token inside the request methods. When you go to the HTTP request class, in this methods we are having that, like as we are having that now set header. In this method, we can specify the authorization and then your access token. We have to specify. In that set header method, we have to pass that access tokens. Now, and then here, whenever we are going to be invoking this actual resource, how can we access this actual resource? This is the resource name, nothing but this is the URL. This is the endpoint URL we need to connect here. For this one, we are going to be invoking the request by passing that access token. Once access token has been getting supplied to invoke this resource, now you will be able to get the response back. So now you will be getting the response. So then you will be getting the response back. Response with the data. Whatever the data that you want, you will be getting the response with the data. This is the process we have to follow as part of that OAuth 2.0 username and the password flow. Okay, understood the concept here? Might be few people might be get confused. So many lines, so many colors, so many resources. Understood the flow, or can I explain one more time?
Sir, can you please explain one more time?
Okay. Now, for example, we have two Salesforce organizations. Okay, this is one organization belongs to Shiva, and this is my organizations. Two Salesforce accounts are available, two different organizations, both are completely different. His server may be anything, AP15, NA21, whatever, I'm not bothered about that. Now my account is like some AP14, AP12, or any maybe NA, it may be U, whatever, anything. Any server, whatever it may be, anything. Now, so now Shiva has implemented, Shiva has implemented a web service, which is purely on the case management. So that web service name is case manager service. Has prepared a web service which is having some confidential data, which is having very complex business logic. So now he has exposed that web service. This is a URL here. In order to access that web service, this is a URL we need to use. So now as a consumer, I want to use this, I want to invoke Shiva's web service because that is also required for me as part of my business. So in this case, I need to access that Shiva's resource, but the web service is very, very confidential. Directly, I can't access this resource just by using that URL. Directly by knowing the URL, we can't access. Based on the URL, if anybody wants to access, then everybody can access Salesforce instance without any credentials. But that is not the case here, because this instance is very, very secured, so that here nobody can enter without the proper rights and the permissions. So that Shiva has configured a security mechanism to protect his service from the unauthorized people. So that he has introduced a authorization server. He has introduced that authorization server. Through this authorization server, only the people can able to access his resource. Other people directly can't access this resource. Now, so now here in this case, whenever if you want to access, nothing but as a client, if I want to access that Shiva's resource, then first of all, I need some input. Okay, I need some input. Based on that input only, I can able to authorize, then only I can able to access his resource. For that one, we need some input from the Shiva. Okay, we need some input from the Shiva. Like the similar way, suppose if you want to use any payment gateway, assume that this resource server is nothing but the banking system. They're having a payment gateway web service. Directly we can't connect. We need to contact the banking people. We should have some agreement. We have to make some payment. Then only they're giving some client ID, client secret, and some usernames and password. With this only we can able to connect, or else we can't connect directly. Okay, this is how we need to contact that payment gateway authorization people. Directly, just by using the URL, we can't access. We need so much information. So for that reason here, we need to contact Shiva so that to access his resource. So I had some agreement with the Shiva also. We did the necessary agreements. So now he is granting the permission to me to access his resource. For that one, to access that actual resource which have been prepared by Shiva, so I need some input from Shiva first. For that one, I need client ID, client secret, a username, and the password. So based on the username and the password and the client ID and the client secret only, I can able to enter into that resource server, and then I can able to access that resource. Now, so that here Shiva has to create a connected app in his organization, and then he has to go whenever he's creating the connected app, it will be generating a client ID, client secret, and then he has to configure one username and the password. That means one user account credentials we need. So now we need to collect this information from the Shiva. Shiva is going to passing all this for information to me. So whenever I'm collecting this information from that, I need to make a request to that authorization server first. So now Salesforce is providing the authorization server. This is the URL. But the backing people will provide the authorization server separately. Okay, every system, every backing organization will be having their own authorization server. That URL is different. This is not the same. For Salesforce applications, they have given this authorization server URL. This URL is going for the utilizing for the Salesforce applications authorization. For backing people, they will be having a separate authorization URL. They will be having a separate resource URL will be available too. So we need to connect those information. Now, so in this case, for the Salesforce application, we are having that authorization server URL is available. So this is the authorization server URL from which we can able to get the access token. So we need to connect to this authorization server URL. So whenever if you want to connect to the authorization server URL, we have to pass an input. So what input? We have to pass the grant type and the client ID, client secret, username, and the password. So these are the 4 information which we have received from Shiva. So now this information are passing to the authorization server. Now authorization server will go to that Shiva server. It will verify whatever the client ID, client secret, username, password, these are correct. If it is correct, then the authorization server is generating one access token. That access token will be sending to me. Now I will be receiving the access token. With the help of that access token, I can able to make a request to that actual resource server so that I can able to get the data from that. Suppose if this web service case manager service requests some input, we have to pass the input value separately here in the form of request body. Okay, this is the flow we have to follow whenever we are implementing the username and the password flow authentication. So in the interview point of view, it's a common question. So now have you used OAuth authentications or not? Say yes. So now what is the flow you have used? Say confidently we are using username password flow. So please explain the flow. Then at that time we should be able to explain this flow. So now they will ask about the flow only. They won't ask you to write the code because code will be very, very lengthy. So we can't write the code in front of those people. They won't give that much of time also, but they will ask you to explain the flow first. So how you are connecting, what please explain the step-by-step approach. For that one, we have to follow this flow over. Okay. So this is the way we are going to be using this one. How to implement this one practically, you will see in tomorrow's session. Tomorrow also we'll be having the session as usual, and then we'll be see the practical concept of this one. Along with that, tomorrow I will show you two examples on this one. One is by using Visual Force, second one is by using the future method, that is called as future callouts. How to do that, I will show you both the examples in tomorrow's session practically, so that we can able to complete this, okay, the authorization processes over there. Okay. Now, this Saturday, Sunday also I would like to take up some sessions. This Saturday, Sunday also I would like to take up some sessions.